So today we are going to start section 5.3. This section is all about ASA and AAS. So that is what our objective is, to show triangles that are congruent using those two things. They're very similar to what we talked about Tuesday and Wednesday in this class. Our whole goal is to prove that two triangles are congruent. Typically you need three key pieces of information. We looked at triangles being congruent because all three sides were congruent. We looked at triangles being congruent because you had a side, an angle in the middle, and a side. And now we're going to look at these two ways. You can probably, if you're good guessers at what letter combinations mean, you can probably figure this one out. The first one is angle, side, angle, and the second one is angle, angle, side. Any questions before we get moving? All right, here's the first one I want you to write down. This is our last set of notes before your quiz. We are reviewing for a few days, like I said, and then taking a quiz. So you actually won't have notes for about a week. So if you feel like you're writing a lot, I do apologize, but this will be the last giant set of notes you have, or large amount of writing. But yes, I want you to write all of that. But again, you won't have to write for a while. Draw those triangles as well. I'm going to add a little bit of information just to show exactly how this postulate would work on the two triangles. So, angle, side, angle postulate says if two angles and the included side, I want you to underline that. The included side, that means the side between those two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles and the included side of the other triangle, you can say the two triangles are congruent. So what that would look like is something like this. Angles congruent, sides congruent, angles congruent. So the angle has to be in between, the side has to be in between the two congruent angles in order to use ASA. So I will give you some time to write this down. Let me know if you have any questions. Alright, so quiet. The second postulate we're going to talk about today, again, you can probably figure out what this one means without even thinking too hard. AAS is angle, angle, side. So now, okay, it's okay. Everybody good? Back to what I was saying. So, angle, angle, side postulate. Now you have two angles and the non-included side from one triangle match up with two angles and the non-included side of another triangle. So it's the same amount of information as the last postulate we talked about. It's just what order they're presented. So I'll give you an example down here. You can fill these in your notes as well. You can either pick the blue triangles or the white triangles. I don't really care as long as you just have one good picture. So if we have these two angles, and let's say we have these two angles, it would be the side that's not in between those angles. That's when you use angle, angle, side. Same thing over here. We would have these angles, another set of angles, and then a side not in between. So in both of the postulates we're looking at today, you're given two angles and a side. You're just deciding, is the side in between the angles? That's when you use angle, side, angle. Or is it not in between the angles? That's when you use angle, angle, side. So again, go ahead and write this down, then we'll start looking at examples. If you're wondering how many you need to put in your notes today, we're going to look at some additional examples that I'm not requiring you to write, but you will have 4 examples in your notes. So that's what's coming up. Let me know if you have any questions. If not, I'll give you some time to catch up. So these two are just some examples I want to look at. You're not required to write these in your notes. But the directions say, based on the diagram, can you use angle, side, angle to show that the triangles are congruent? Just like the other day, you don't really need to explain your reasoning. Either you can use it or you can't. That's as much information as I need. But looking at this first triangle, or these first two triangles, do you see how I have angle, angle, and then this side? Is that side in between the two angles?
Yes. don't agree with the yes.
B and D are.
They look different.
Not between these two angles, between the two angles in each triangle.
No.
No. If it's not, it would have to be this one. So if it's not in between, then it'd be angle, angle, side. So this one's actually not going to work. These triangles are congruent, but not because of angle, side, angle. So part A is a no. But let's look at part B. Do I have angle, side, angle on part B? Yes, because we have angle, then the side, then an additional angle. Remember, the key here is that the side has to be in between the angles. So this one is a yes. What are your questions on these first two? Again, these are not required to be in your notes, but these are. So go ahead and write these down. We'll talk about them in just a minute. I will give you a hint if you want to get working as you're writing. One of these is going to be a yes, one of these is going to be a no. You try to figure out which one's which. Yes, draw these in your notes. So as you're drawing number one, I want you to add something, and we'll discuss why it's true. There's an additional set of angles we know in example one that are not labeled. This angle and this angle. Do you remember what those types of angles are called? Vertical angles, very good. We learned in chapter 2 last semester that vertical angles are always congruent. So if you have a pair of vertical angles, mark them as being congruent. That'll help you get your final answer, because without those angles we don't really know enough information. But with those angles, what do we have?
We both know they're congruent, so they're both similar. That one is a yes.
It's going to be a yes, but is it yes because of angle, side, angle?
No.
Do you have angle, side, angle? Yes, you do. So this one's a yes. All right, number 2, let's check. Excuse me. On number 2, do we have angle, side, angle? Yeah. There's not enough information. This angle's not in the right spot. Okay, so you have angle, side, angle, side. It would have to be this angle down here if you were going to say they're congruent. So the order's not quite matching up for angle, side, angle here. So this one's going to be a no. Do you guys have any questions on these first two? Here's just another practice problem I want to look at. You don't need to write this one in your notes, but now we're going to look at angle, angle, side. Again, this is going to tap into some information that might be in the back of your brain from first semester. So we do have a pair of vertical angles here. So I want you to remember that these are congruent because they're vertical. Notice that these sides are labeled as being congruent, but they're also labeled with something else. Do you remember what these little triangles mean? It means they're parallel. And when you have parallel lines that are cut by another line, similar to this one, we call that a transversal. And transversals that cut parallel lines create something called alternate interior angles. And those are congruent. Now, I'm going to help you get these labeled when you see problems like this, because it is kind of a lot of information all coming together at once. But now that it's labeled in that way, does angle, angle, side work here?
Yes.
Yes. See the red angles, the blue angles, and then the side. So this would be a yes, it is angle, angle, side. Again, the hard parts here is just remembering what you learned last semester. What are your questions on these?
I have.
All right, these are the two I would like you to get in your notes. So I'll give you a minute, and then we're going to discuss if AAS works. Just like last time, one is going to work and one's not going to work. You don't need to tell me the additional information. Just tell me yes, it works, or no, it doesn't work.
I think 3 could be possibly also yes.
No, she said that one will be yes.
One's going to be yes, one's going to be no.
Sure yes.
So you're saying you know 4 is a yes.
I don't know. I'm like 109% sure.
So you're getting close. Okay. Number 4 is definitely a yes.
That's why I said, told you.
Okay, good. I like the debate. Here we have an angle, and a side. Now let's look at 3. 3 is kind of the tricky one. We know that this side, DF, is in both triangles, so it's obviously going to be congruent. DF is also a transversal. That's going to give us alternate interior angles. But we don't know another pair of angles, so that's why that one's a no. You're getting close, but you're not quite there. Parallel lines are not necessarily congruent. So if these were congruent, then yeah, it'd be side, angle, side. Parallel lines, they're just not. That's parallel. Being parallel and being congruent aren't the same thing. Because like you could have a short like these lines are still parallel, but they're not congruent. But you're on the same, or you're on the right track with those. Boys, do you have a question?
No.
It's talking to. We good? No, you don't need to write this one down. But this is kind of where these problems are leading. So up until now, in the directions, it'll say like, is this the postulate? And you'd say yes or no. Is there a reason you're talking? Yeah, we're just practicing together. Okay, let me start over because I feel like you're not focused like you should be. Okay, up until now, the directions have said which postulate I'm kind of leading you towards. Like, is this SSS? Is this SAS? Now it's just asking you, which one is it? So which one would this be? AAS. Good. It would be angle, angle, side. Everybody see that? Okay, I want to give you some homework time today. So I'm not going to require you to write these either, but I do want to look at these. So this is more of those types of problems. Which one is it? So number 5, if you remember vertical angles and you add those in, which postulate are we using?
Yes. It's angle, side, angle, side.
Angle, side, angle. Very good.
Side is yes.
Yep. So yes, there's enough information. When it's a yes, you can just tell me which one it is. All right, on the next one, we do have some sides congruent. We have some angles congruent. And then if you think of this as the transversal, that would give you these angles congruent. So now you have angle, angle, side. So this would be A, S. Now, again, old information is going to continue to pop up. Here's another way you might see it. So it's saying that KL bisects JM. We talked about bisecting yesterday. Bisects means how many congruent parts? 2. Yeah. So that would make this side and this side congruent. So once you label those, now which one are you using? You could actually, I would accept the answer side, angle, angle. Typically we call it angle, angle, side. Do you see how it's the same thing in reverse? As long as you don't put the side in the middle, I'll take it. I'm glad you brought that up. Any questions on these notes for today? Yeah, I'll leave these up if you want to put them in your notes, but you're not required to put these in your notes. Any additional questions?
Homework.
All right, here comes your homework.